Dr. Deming's message that is often difficult for people to understand. Hard work and good intentions are not enough. Unless you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you cannot produce quality. Which raises the interesting question, how do you define quality?
Unless you're serving your customer in his terms, you aren't really achieving quality. From another point of view, it could be at the very outset of developing the entire process of getting a product to the customer. And in that sense, quality better begin at the very beginnings of how you gain your knowledge, your information, the quality of how you understand the customer, understand your own present abilities, your own technologies that are available, what suppliers can do to bring their ideas to bear, what the dealers have in their minds. And so that's another way you could say that's where quality must start at the very beginning.
It's providing products and services that meet customers' needs and expectation at a cost that represents value to the customer. No one has been as eloquent in bringing that into focus in Ford than Dr. Deming.
Dr. Deming's system is based on his 14 points, all of which sound simple and logical. But taken together, they represent such a new industrial approach that at the beginning, Ford understood only a few of the 14. Eventually, all 14 points had a significant influence on Ford's own statement of mission, values, and guiding principles, a statement that answered a critical question.
What is it we stand for? And what I think came together beautifully was in trying to think through that question, which led to our mission, values, and guiding principles statement. I think we also then found that crystallized statement of what we're trying to do, through which we could apply the constancy of purpose that Dr. Deming talks about so frequently. Because this statement then now gives all of the people of the team we call Ford Motor Company, and suppliers, and dealers. And by the way, numbers of dealers and suppliers now have their own versions of this. All understand where we're trying to go, and therefore the constancy of purpose is a possibility.
That provides the opportunity for everyone in the company to focus on not what they believe, but what all of us have come together and said, this is a vision of the company we want to be.
That's right.
I think that whole process was terribly important, and certainly it was greatly influenced by the 14 points. Putting in a rating is only the very first step. Living that action every day is what really
absolutely
does it.
Absolutely agree with that.
But people can't live it until they understand it. At Windsor Export Supply, operations manager Bob Linklater made sure that everyone knew Ford's statement of mission, values, and guiding principles.
I used that to sit down and discuss with all employees, right from the mailroom up through management, exactly where the company was heading and how we fitted into that picture.
The picture has changed since the end of World War II.
When we focused after World War II in getting out as much product and not changing over to a new product so that we could have continuity of operations, was that fulfilling the needs of the customer base after World War II? I think sometimes we get a little bit carried away that we discovered the idea that we are a customer-driven company in the last 3 years. We may have rediscovered it.
One idea that has been discovered in the last few years is that between Ford and the United Auto Workers, cooperation is better than confrontation. In its own self-interest, the union wants to help. Windsor Export is an example.
The employees, through the union, voiced their concerns that they felt they could do certain things that would keep the company afloat. They wanted to get involved. They thought that their input could turn things around. They wanted to be a part of the operation because they felt their jobs were in jeopardy.
I've been in management some 22 years. Growing up with the old style, sometimes that meant the dogmatic approach, which is the boss's way or no way.
The employees from the Old West, if you will, were a very frustrated group. They had all kinds of ideas, ways that their job could be improved. They wanted to be a part of the decision-making process. They were concerned about their job.
In the last year and a half, applying the continuing improvement and employee involvement principles, I have found that I'm delegating more workload, more decision-making, and more responsibility to the employee.
In 1987, without a strike, Ford and the UAW reached an historic labor agreement that recognizes the needs of the union and the company. As we mentioned in Volume 3, Ford decided in 1983 to close its plants for 2 weeks rather than hire temporary employees to replace vacationing regulars. It cost Ford hundreds of millions of dollars, but it improved quality, and it demonstrates to the workers that they are important to Ford. Another demonstration that quality was more than a handy slogan was Ford's refusal to market the 1983 Thunderbird, even though it probably would have won the Car of the Year award.
But the car wasn't ready from a quality standpoint. The parts weren't to specifications, and they weren't going together, and Red Bowling, who was heading North America then, made the very tough decision, we're not going to launch the car to get the Car of the Year award because the car isn't ready to satisfy our customers, and we delayed it and lost the Car of the Year award. That year Renault got the Car of the Year award, and T-Bird didn't get it.
There is a pleasant ending. The Thunderbird Turbo won Car of the Year in 1987 after Taurus won it for 1986. But winning awards is not nearly as important as changing attitudes.
The focus of Windsor Export Supply has shifted from problem solving to process improvement. The traditional way of managing a business is problem solving. You solve one problem and another one comes in to replace it. And there's a never-ending supply of problems that are consuming the organization's resources. By focusing on the process, you prevent those problems from recurring, and you better satisfy the customer.
Dr. Deming has worked with Ford since 1981. How much has been done? How far along is Ford? Jim Bakken hears that question often.
People say, well, we've heard a great deal about the accomplishments at Ford. Tell us, how far along in this process do you think you are? And my response usually is a long way. I think we're at least 10 or 15 or 20% of the way home. And usually Dr. Deming will get up and say, not a bit over 10.
In fact, Dr. Deming does not like to use figures at all. If your goal is continuous improvement, you can't be 10 or 15% along, because there is no 100%. There is no limit, and that's the key. Don Peterson says that even if Ford had a monopoly in the auto industry, its job would be the same.
The customer has wants and needs that I should be meeting fully at a cost he or she believes is real value. And if I'm striving to do that and to do it on a continuously improving basis, that shouldn't change whether I'm in monopoly or in an intensely competitive environment, which I presently am in.
There'd be nothing in your way toward improvement. You would accelerate your improvement. Your position improve.
I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this.
Although, let's be careful.
Since we are in such an intensely competitive business. But it just strikes me that your thought that I'd be able to could do an even better job of what we're trying to accomplish sounds to me like that's right on the mark.
In 7 years, Ford Motor Company has gone from being pretty satisfied with what it had to the realization that if it wants to succeed in an increasingly competitive world, it can never be satisfied. Ford must always improve, always. In our next presentation, officials of Ford talk about some accepted American management practices and why those practices are no longer good enough. I'm Lloyd Dobbins for the Deming Library.